Good morning and welcome to Morning Perfect Base. I'm going to work on my perfect base a little bit every day, and after a few months, we're going to see where I am. My first article today is about Wells Fargo and Puffery. We want to leave no stone unturned. If we find something that's important, we'll communicate that. I think, given our desire to be very transparent, we'll probably err on the side of over-communicating. That's what Wells Fargo's CEO told stockholders in a phone call in 2017. That was in January. At that time, the bank was already reeling from the public learning that it had created 3.5 million fraudulent accounts using the identities of its customers. During the phone call, Sloan already had a complete report from consultants Oliver Wyman about what was waiting under Wells Fargo's next stone. But he did not communicate that. From 2014 to 2016, Wells Fargo had financed many vehicle loans, packaging Wells Fargo car insurance policies with them. They failed to itemize insurance charges on their customers' loan statements. Consequently, clients who already had car insurance were signed up for and paid for additional car insurance through Wells Fargo. Over 250,000 were pushed into delinquency from those additional fees. 25,000 cars were repossessed. When that scandal came out in July of 2017, Wells Fargo stock dropped. When the dust cleared, stockholders learned that they had been lied to. Sloan had the report that indicated another scandal on the horizon, and he had not told them, costing them millions of dollars. Naturally, those shareholders sued. In their defense, Wells Fargo has claimed that Sloan's explicit assurances and promise to inform the shareholders was not a lie. It was puffery, a claim that is so unbelievable that legally it cannot have been intended to mislead. The articles I've read, like the world's best juice line used in advertisements, which no consumer is expected to honestly believe. I linked the Los Angeles Times article because of all my reading, it asked the incredibly reasonable question, if puffery isn't intended to be believed, then why say it? It's worth discussing that our legal system has a form of legalized corporate lying based on the speaker's lack of credibility. But what is more incredible is Wells Fargo's claim that their own shareholders should not take communications from their CEO seriously. The absurdity is prima facie. In an email with the Los Angeles Times, Wells Fargo reiterated its commitment to transparency and restoring its customers' trust. More puffery, surely. Betrayal Legacy is coming. I am a big fan of Betrayal at House on the Hill, and I've been intrigued by the Legacy editions of games which allow the effects of one play of the game to influence how later plays work. For something as intricate and varied as Betrayal, a Legacy version is tantalizing. Wired sat down with Rob Daviau, creator of Betrayal, and asked about Legacy. The game will start in 1666 because of course it will. Each subsequent game will take place 30 years later, with new room tiles being added as time passes. The new room tiles will evolve to visually represent the time they come from, creating a series of tiles across centuries to make up the labyrinthine house. My impression is that some of the complexity of Betrayal will be pared back to better and more flexibly work with the Legacy system. Daviau talked about allowing players agency while still showing at least 10 coherent interlocking rounds of play. One of the mechanics he mentioned was that when a player is killed in a room, a ghost sticker is placed on that room's tile. In subsequent years, that ghost sticker will allow the tile to interact with other events in the game. Very simple and very intriguing. It'll probably cost $100, but I am still looking forward to it. The Georgia Institute of Technology and the UL Chemical Safety, a nonprofit research organization dedicated to safety research, looked into particle emissions from 3D printers. They found stuff. First, there are the fine particles. 3D printers can give off high levels of ultrafine particles, UFPs, which can be inhaled and attached to the pulmonary system. It seems that these effects are serious in folks who have asthma, children, and possibly people with underlying vascular dysfunction. Second are the volatile organic compounds. These include things like formaldehyde and styrene. Over 200 similar carcinogens and irritants were found to be emitted by 3D printers, but there's no word on the levels emitted. We get constantly exposed to radiation by living on Earth, but it's not enough to be dangerous. Sometimes we get cancer. What I'm trying to say is that there's publicly available information on whether the concentration of volatile organic compounds is in concentrations significantly higher than an ambient presence of those toxins. Anyway, so their suggestions are to operate 3D printers in well-ventilated areas, like outdoor ventilation. Operate 3D printers at the lowest temperatures possible for their applications. Don't stand near them when they're operating. And be careful about items that are kept near them while they're operating. Do not keep dirty plates by your 3D printer. Do not keep coffee mugs by your printer. Pacifiers, bottles, anything like that. They also recommend using filaments and models of 3D printers which are found to have low emissions. The issue seems to be more of a warning than a red alert right now, but it is definitely worth taking some extra care when using them and when purchasing 3D printers until we learn a little bit more. Machine learning cheats. We have been teaching artificial intelligences how to play games for a while. In the simplest execution, the AI has outputs and it can detect how many points it has. Then it learns to give the set of outputs which give it the most points, right? Obviously, this works best for very early games like Super Mario and Q*bert and Sonic. Now, I love it when a computer goes down what I call a behavioral dead end. It takes steps A, B, C, and D, and then it ends, but it gets a lot of points, but not enough. So it alters C and D, but never reevaluates B because that's where the big points are. It's kind of like the monkey when it has like its hand in a hole and it grabs a coconut, but it can't pull it out because it won't let go of the coconut. I am sure that the actual AIs used in modern studies are smarter than that, but I like the principle because I think it's applicable to human psychology and that we often have to unlearn more than we're comfortable with to move on to a better place psychologically, to learn new skills. This isn't about that though. This is about computers learning how to use those inputs to make crazy points without playing the game. For example, a Q*bert AI learned that it could jump around on the screen between levels. If it did this a certain way, it would gain points and prevent the game from progressing to the next round. It discovered a stable jump pattern, and after the first round, it would lock the game between levels while it jumped Q*bert around and made 1,000,000 points, which is the point value selected to declare the AI victorious. Another one learned that if it led an enemy off the edge of the map, even if it died in the process, it would gain enough points for a new life and be able to respawn. It made a steady loop of infinite points by Pied Pipering enemies to their death. It's interesting stuff. A cool lady named Victoria Krakovina created a collection of these types of AI life hacks so that we can all enjoy reading them and maybe learn a little bit from them. Go ahead and check it out. That's my recommend for this episode. Bitcoin scammers. I want you to know these articles are from last month. I am trying to read through that thing. It is a big document. I should just probably focus on newer stuff. It does not matter. So there are new Bitcoin scams coming up. I think Bitcoin crashed in the time since I wrote this. So reading on. Bitcoin scammers have been hacking Twitter accounts and posting fake giveaway links. Folks who want to enter are encouraged to give a few Bitcoin for a chance to win more. They don't win more. They hack Twitter accounts, these guys, and they use them directly, as they did with Target. But they also hack verified accounts. They change the name and image to a more prominent verified account and post the link there, effectively turning a low-value checkmark into a high-value checkmark. Pretty sneaky. I also assume that the scam uses Bitcoin because it's less traceable than regular old credit card fraud. But speaking of credit card fraud and shadow fraud, the dishonest conspiracy site InfoWars was infected with malware, right? Resulting in a third party illegally gaining access to the credit card information for 1,600 people. More tragically, it did not stop those 1,600 people from shopping at InfoWars. Maine Republican challenges state-ranked choice voting. Again, this is just from after the election. However, there's a follow-up here, and I promise I will follow up on it. So back in 2016, Maine approved ranked voting. That means that voters rank the candidates for offices. Each voter's vote is given to their first choice candidate. If there's no candidate with 50% of the vote, the least powerful candidate is eliminated, and their voters' votes are given to their second chances. Repeat until a candidate has more than 50% of the vote. So if your first guy doesn't has the lowest number of votes, whoever your second guy that you picked on your ballot, he gets your vote instead. That way you can still vote for a winner. Okay, in theory, ranked voting would allow for the creation of third parties by allowing voters to pick third parties without their votes hurting established party candidates who they may not share issues with, but who a voter would prefer. In reality, the votes of those who chose left-leaning third parties may still be lost, as the Republican first-choice frontrunner is suing the state on the grounds that ranked voting is allegedly unconstitutional. He says that preferential voting makes the votes of those who vote only for one candidate count less, and it allows for the winner of an election who didn't have a plurality of votes. The first one's a bad argument, but it's an argument. I mean, obviously, if everyone can do ranked voting, then voters who only make one choice haven't been any more disenfranchised than someone who registered to vote but chose not to. I'm sure the law is more nuanced than that, so maybe I'm wrong. It is hard to wrap your head around there being a flaw with the majority of voters deciding the outcome of a race instead of a plurality. It is bizarre to claim that a plurality, the good enough of democracy, is somehow any more legitimate than a majority. I mean, he might technically be right. A democracy by majority might be our implicit view of democracy, and certainly a system in which 50% or more of the people are willing to compromise is a better system. But is it as easy to assume that when our Constitution was written, the Founding Fathers wanted a majority to make decisions? I mean, obviously, right? But they knew that wouldn't be practicable, so they chose a single vote plurality system, because in a single vote system, a plurality is the only way to ensure a single victor in a race. We can't assume that, but maybe they just wanted a simple, one and done plurality vote. How else would you ensure an election yielded a clear result? I mean, besides a runoff, in runoffs, a field of candidates is narrowed down, usually two, and the victor is the candidate with a plurality of second round results. Usually that is a majority. In fact, ranked voting is known as an instant runoff voting because that's all it is. It's just an all-at-once runoff voting process. So this dude is fucking off his gourd, and I hope his first court and every court he appeals to laughs their asses off at him. I wanted to follow up on this because I did a tweet storm about the follow-up case, and honestly, it's just gold. I'll see if I can link that entire thread in with everything else on this episode. But I know he has appealed, so he did lose the race. The other guy was declared the winner. The Democrat won. But he is appealing, so that's going to be interesting. SonicFox. I think the typical pablum is to talk about how great SonicFox is at fighting games and how he's been great for the past 7 years, and he's 20 now, so when you do the math, he's like the Mozart of Dragon Ball FighterZ. And then they'll drop the fact that he's a black queer furry on you like it's a bombshell. I am always down for celebrating gay folks who are doing well, but my cheering of SonicFox's victories is about more than that. I don't follow the competitive fighting game scene, but the guy is really good. Good enough that the only part of the Game Awards Esports Awards that I recognize was his nomination for Best Esports Moment in a DBZ fight against Go 1. With the hate speech that you hear online, and specifically in gaming spaces, in the political narrative, it is heartening to see someone who is a target of that living their best life and having the skills to back it up. As an update, since I've written this, SonicFox won that game award. And people lost their shit, and it was amazing. And if you think that anyone who is in the LGBT community, or is a furry, or is a queer, needs to shut up about their orientation, you need to shut up about their shutting up about their orientation. Because as tired as you are of hearing about gay people existing, we are tired of hearing you bitch about us existing and acknowledging the facts of our existence. So we're just sick of it, and you can fuck all the way off. Anyway, I do not have a good sign-off, so until I get one,